Albertus Magnus de Praedicabilibus, Episode 4. Modus igitur omnis doctrinae logica est, et sic omnis doctrinae modus est scientia logica. Nulla igitur est doctrina specialis, quae logica sit dicenda. Now Albertus draws some conclusions, and he says, therefore, the mode, the method, the means, omnis doctrinae, of every kind of instruction, is a logic. And omnis is feminine singular genitive. Now, it could conceivably be masculine singular nominative and modifying modus. We can't really tell from the form, but I believe that the position here is highly indicative because of igitur, and I also think it's what makes the most sense. The same holds for the next one. And thus, omnis doctrinae, of every kind of instruction or teaching or doctrine, of every doctrine, the modus is, modus est, the means, the method, the manner is a logical science, a scientia logica, that is a logical system of knowledge or something that can be taught and conveyed, a type of knowing, schira, that is subject to explanation and to being passed on to someone else. And now the final conclusion for this section. Therefore, nulla doctrina, no teaching, no doctrine is specialis. This means belonging to its own species, as opposed to the genus. No doctrina, no doctrine is suited to its own species. And now the very important qualifier, no doctrine quae logica sit dicenda. So we see that doctrina has one modifier in nulla. It has as its predicate specialis, nulla doctrina est specialis, and then doctrina has a second modifier, namely this clause, quae logica sit dicenda. So no doctrine, that is one which is, or is to be called, a logical doctrine. Not one of those is specialis. So let's look at this relative clause in more detail. Relative clauses end in either a indicative and indicative verb, or they end with a subjunctive verb. Here's the relative pronoun, quae. It's feminine, its antecedent is doctrina. So if they end in an indicative, they state a simple fact. If they end with, or they have the verb in the subjunctive, they state something that is possible, something that is likely, but not something that is conclusively the case. That would be the indicative. And here, this subjunctive means that it's what's called a relative clause of characteristic. So what kind of doctrine is it that is not specialis? It's any which can be called a logical doctrine. So dicenda sit, this is a passive periphrastic, the grammarians call it. It's the gerundive dicenda, and then a form of the verb esse, namely sit, and it connotes necessity or obligation. So putting it all together, therefore, no doctrine is set to its own species, is special, which must be called a logical doctrine. And this is because logic is a part of every different kind of instruction. Albert the Great was the Bishop of Regensburg, which is here northeast of Munich in Germany.